Whenever a crisis erupts, like now, a war between the United States and Israel on one side and Iran on the other side, people tend to react in four rather predictable ways. It's true. Some people act like water. What do I mean? We'll learn, but it basically means they despair, they panic, they feel like everything is collapsing around them as if they're drowning. Other people react like earth. Earth just sits there. It doesn't want to do anything, meaning that people just want to just submit to the reality. Listen, just de-escalate this. This is getting out of control. Or they say things like, accept the situation. There's nothing we can do about it. Other people react like fire. Wow. They get all excited. They want to fight harder. And they want to escalate, destroy the enemy. And then finally, there's a fourth group here that reacts like air. What do I mean they react like air? Well, air comes out of the mouth when you speak, right? So air is like shouting and arguing and protesting, and they want to influence public opinion. That's their main approach. What's amazing, so these are these four. By the way, these four, water, earth, fire, and air, are what the ancients called the four elements. And even it exists within Judaism as well, by the way. Within Torah thought, there are these four elements. They never really meant that the universe physically is made out of these four. That's a misunderstanding. What they really meant when they talked about the four fundamental elements of the world is exactly kind of what I just said now, that on a spiritual level, everything unfolds according to these four major streams. What's amazing, though, is that Chazal say that these exact four reactions that we're seeing today in the world happened 3,300 years ago when the Jewish people stood at the sea with the Egyptian army coming down upon them from behind. Exact same form. We're going to see that as we proceed. But even beyond that, the Torah goes on and tells us something truly remarkable. Every one of these four reactions is not the right reaction. Every one of them is not the right reaction. Moshe reveals the true reaction that we should all have, and that's what we're going to learn today. Not only did Moshe Rabbeinu reveal to us what the true reaction should be, we also see it later on, and we're going to learn this in today's class, that Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, he also later discovered these exact four mistakes, we'll call them, reactions of mankind, and also it was revealed to him the fifth response. And so that's what we're calling this, shiur. We're calling this the fifth response. The Yam Suf, the sea, Eliyahu, and today's war with Iran. And if we understand very well the fifth response, it totally changes how we think about crises in general and about this particular crisis that's upon the world today. So good evening, everybody. I'm Hoshea Allen. You're listening to the Shoemaker Report, and welcome aboard. We're going to begin tonight with a Midrash. It's called the Mechilta of Rabbi Yishmael. You can look it up. It's a well-known Midrash, contains really awesome Torah. We're going to learn from the section on Bishalach, which is the parsha dealing with the crossing of the sea. And we're going to look at what it says in part there in section number 3. This is what it says. Arba kitot naaseh Yisrael al hayam. The Jewish people were divided into 4 groups when they were at the Yam, when they were at the sea. Achat omeret, this is now the Midrash going on, and it says, one said, Nipol Yam, let's just fall into the sea. What do they mean, let's just fall into the sea? It means, let's just drown ourselves. This is ridiculous. With complete inner collapse is what they were experiencing. Total hopelessness. In a word, yeush, despair. And yet Rabbi Nachman teaches there's no such thing as despair. Don't allow yourself to fall into despair. But here we see the Midrash says that one of the 4 groups, doesn't say how many was in each group, what percentage, different what it was. Was it 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%? I don't know. The Midrash doesn't say that. It just says there were 4 groups. This one group, all they want to do is let's just kill ourselves. Let's commit suicide. There's no way out of this. This is a very sad, tragic reaction that some people feel when even personal crises come upon them, which can happen. We know that can happen. overwhelming pain, overwhelming suffering, overwhelming, machloket in the family, problems between husband and wife, children and parents, job, financial situations, sickness, illness. There can be serious difficulties that we all can fall into sometimes. Chas v'shalom. The thing we don't want to allow ourselves, we don't want to end up like this. We don't want to say, let's just throw ourselves into the sea. We should never lose out. And we're going to learn tonight why we should never lose. There's always an answer. There's always a reason to have hope. There's a story in our Midrash that talks about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he was actually captured by Paro, by the Egyptians, and they were going to cut his head off because of his accusation that he had murdered somebody, which he actually did, sort of, out there in the desert. And the sword comes down, and Hashem turns his neck into marble, like solid rock, and smashed the sword. Now, you talk about a last-minute salvation. Last-minute salvations, that's Hashem's specialties. That's what he does the best of all. He waits to the last minute. And this is exactly what's happening at the sea. Why didn't Hashem just split the sea before the Egyptians got there? That'd be boring. Anticlimactic. The whole point is Hashem wants people to really push themselves to the limit. So could Hashem have told Moshe to split the sea before the Egyptian army was coming over the hills? Of course he could have. But that's not the way Hashem works. You have to realize that. When you're going through difficulties, you have to realize, wait a second, more than likely, you can bet on it 99.999% of the time. There are rare exceptions. But for the most part, Hashem will give deliverance at the last moment. You have to wait to that last moment. That's the avoda. That's the tough part. All right. So this sort of inner collapse was one of the groups, and that really corresponds to what? Which of the four? Water, earth, fire, or air? What do you think? So that corresponds to, obviously, water. I mean, there was water. They wanted to throw themselves into water. They wanted to literally drown in the water. So water, because it's unstable, right? It goes this way, it goes that way. That's that idea of collapse, completely collapsing inside. That's the instability. There's nowhere to stand internally in their own lives. They don't feel that there is, but there really is. They just haven't tapped into it yet. All right, that's one group. Second group, the Midrash says, Chad Omer, and another group says the following, Nachzor Lemitzrayim. Let's go back to Egypt. Let's go back to Egypt. Which of the four elements, the four fundamental elements, corresponds to this? They just said, let's go back. Well, let's analyze exactly what was the inner part, what was going on inside of their lives internally. They were basically they wanted just to accept the situation. Just accept it, surrender. That's really what it is. It's surrender. It's submitting oneself to things outside of your control. Now, there are times, obviously, when we must submit ourselves to Hashem's orchestrating events around our life. This is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about giving up. That's what it is, just surrendering and going back. And so you think about it, of the remaining three, we've got earth, fire, and air. So what is this? Doesn't seem like fire, right? Doesn't seem like air. Again, what is it? It's earth. This is the earth people, right? The people that just sit there like dirt. Not that they're dirty, but dirt doesn't move. It just sits there and it just says, walk all over me. Do whatever you want with me. Now, there's a time when we need to be like that, obviously. We need to be humble and we need to be submissive and we need to have a sense of shiflut. And many times we need to allow people to, quote, walk all over us. Look at the words at the end of the Shemona Esrei. We say that exact same thing. That we will be like dirt to everybody. That's what it means. Let people walk all over you. But again, so there's a walking over you in Kedusha, and there's a walking over you when you just you're ready to break. This is the ready to break aspect. And every one of these four elements, by the way, water, earth, fire, and air, there's a Sitra Achra side, which is what we're talking about here. This is the side of Tuma. It's not the side of holiness. It's not the side of Kedusha. And then there is the holy side of each of these four. So you need to understand, these four are not wrong, nor are they right. It depends how you're going to use these four. These four elements are the root of the structure of the whole universe. So they're there. They're forms of energy. So you can tap into that energy in a positive way. You can tap into that energy in a negative way. Here we're looking at the negative because we want to see the flaws that we might be committing in ourselves and then find the resolution to this whole problem. To look at what is the fifth response, which is the right response. All right, that was the second group. The third group, what does the Midrash say? It says, V'achat omer, one other group says, Nasa milchama kenegdan. Let's go make war against them. Let's go fight. Aggressivity, right? Just being aggressive, confrontational. After all, they left Mitzrayim with swords. That's what it says. They had swords. They had all the stuff that they got from the Egyptians. Oh, yes, they had gold, they had silver. But they came up chamushim, which some translate that to say that they came up with swords. And we know that they had swords because they went into battle against Amalek and so on, and they had swords. So they're looking around, hey, Hashem gave us all these weapons, man, let's use them. You see? That's obviously the fire response. And we see that in our world today, don't we? You may see it in yourself as well. There's a certain stream of Jews and non-Jews that, they always want to just fight. They always want, they have this fire burning. Now, we need to have a fire burning inside of us. We need an Eish HaTorah. We need a fire for the Torah. Not a fire to go fight wars. This is what we're going to learn. This is what we're seeing here. This is not one of the good uses of our internal, psychology of our soul. And then finally, the fourth group, the Midrash says, V'achat omeret, this last group says, nitztavach kenegdan. Now, this word nitztavach, there's in parentheses, it's nitzak, which means to cry out, to shout, to scream. So there was one fourth group. One of the four groups was screaming. They were in such distress. They didn't want to collapse. They were not like the water people. They didn't want to collapse. They didn't want to drown themselves. They didn't want to commit suicide. They just wanted to just scream. There was an emotional outcry, shouting. That obviously corresponds to the air. So we see, and that also corresponds to people in our world today. When something happens, they just have a lot of internal energy, a lot of air energy. They're air people, and they just have to go out and protest, and they have to go and march in the streets, and they just have to make a lot of noise. Every one of these four aspects that people can fall into on the side of the negative can be turned around, obviously, and can be used by each and every one of those kind of people and turned into Kedusha. That's what we all have to learn how to do. If we find that we're a fire person, that's not bad. That's good. We have to direct the fire to Kedusha, to holiness. And if we analyze ourselves and we always think, you know what, I'm kind of a water person, always just kind of just filled with despair and want to commit suicide, then the water is good because our Torah is likened to water, and water is matayir. It purifies. So, and the same thing can be said with earth, and the same thing can be said with air. We'll let you, do that on your own. Now, that's the four. The Mechilta goes on and it says the following. Moshe Rabbeinu gave an answer to every one of these four kinds of Jews that were there at the sea. And it happens, you can look it up. It's in Shemot chapter 14, it's Exodus chapter 14, verses 13 and 14. That's where it's found. Moshe responds, he's right at the sea, and in 2 verses, he says what he says. The Midrash here decides that it understands that Moshe's words to Klal Yisrael at that time was a direct response to each of these four kinds of people and each of their own internal turmoil that they were going through. Whether they wanted to just commit suicide, whether they wanted to go back to Mitzrayim, whether they wanted to fight the Egyptians, or whether they just wanted to scream and they didn't know what they were doing. They were so out of control. So let's see how the Midrash touches up Moshe's response in those 2 verses and see how those words correlate to those 4 groups. So the Midrash says, Zot Amara Nipol Yam, those who said, let's just fall into the sea. Ne'emar Lehem, it says about them, and here's the quote. Moshe says, Hityatzvu ur'u et Yeshuat Hashem asher yaseh lechem hayom. Stand still. Yityatzvu. Stand there. Stop panicking. Don't jump into the sea. Hold your ground, is what Moshe says. Yityatzvu ur'u, and you'll see the salvation of Hashem that He will do. Asher yaseh, that He will do lachem, for you today. Just Hold your ground. That's what the Midrash says was Moshe's words directed against the water people. The people who said, just nipol yam, let's just jump into the sea, throw ourselves into the water and drown. And that way we'll be done with this insanity. They reached a breaking point. It's not a criticism against these people. Nowhere does the Midrash criticize these four groups of Jews. It's simply describing it. It's describing the reality. And I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but yet to help us all analyze ourselves and say, hey, am I falling into one of these four groups? Do I have a tendency over time to typically fall into one of these four groups? If I do, I need to be aware of that so I can try to work on it and help fix myself, make myself more holy, more healthy. So Moshe says, if you find yourselves like that, if you find yourself wanting to just give up and just end it all, which is very dangerous, but it's a very dangerous position obviously to be in. I'm not trying to belittle that. And if you ever find yourself in a position like that, you need to get help like right away. But Moshe says, just stand still. Hold on. Reach deep inside yourself and find the source of holiness, the source of Kedusha that's in there, and just hold on. Don't allow yourself to fall into despair. Like Rabbi Nachman says, Ein shum yeush ba'olam haklal. There's no such thing as yeush. Because even though you're feeling down at a given point in time, you're not going to stay down forever. Life doesn't stay down forever. There are ups and downs, and then ups again, and then downs again. Yes, that's the vibration of life. It's all about ratzo v'shov, running ahead and retreating, going up and going down, going up and going down. That's the nature of life. So when you find yourself down, wanting to just give it all up, realize, wait, hold still. You'll come back up again. Don't put a time limit on it, though. Don't say to Shem, like, if I don't come back up, by tomorrow, I'll forget it. No. Just wait. All right, the next one. Nachzor, let me try. Let's go back to Egypt. So about them, Moshe said these words. Ki asher ritem et Mitzrayim. Yes, you see the Egyptians today, just like you see them today. He says, Lo tosifu lirotam od ad olam. You're never going to see them ever again forever. So that's what the Mechilta says was Moshe's response to who? To the earth people. The earth people who said what? They said, let's go back to Mitzrayim. So what is Moshe saying? What do you want to go back to Mitzrayim for? Why do you want to go back to Egypt? Why do you want to go back to slavery? That's it. It's over. You may not see how it's over, but Moshe says it's over, and you're never going to see them again. So don't go back. That's pointless. So that was that answer to them. Don't go back because you're never going to see them ever again anyway. Just keep going forward. Keep going forward. What are you talking about, Moshe? I mean, the sea is in front of us, the mountains on one side, desert on the other side, and the Egyptians coming in the rear. Well, where do you go forward? Well, that's part of the fifth response. I think you can begin to see it. What about the third group? The third group said, let's fight. We got weapons, we got swords. So how many men were there of like fighting age? There was 600,000. How many chariots were coming? Not that many. I forget exactly what the pasuk says. 600 maybe in all the chariots? You think that 600,000 guys could take on maybe a couple thousand, horsemen and the greatest chariots? I don't know. Maybe they thought they could. After all, look at the numbers. So they felt, yeah, man, we can fight. We're strong. We're tough. We got swords. So the Midrash says, those who said, let's make war against them. What did Moshe say in the next pasuk? This is verse number 14 there in that chapter. What did he say? He said, Hashem yilachem lachem. Hashem will be the one who will make war for you, not you. You don't fight. You go learn Torah. Go sit in the base Midrash and learn. Let Hashem do the fighting. But see, that's so hard for the fire people to believe in. They just say, what are you talking about? You got to do your histadlut. How many times do we hear the same thing over history? Got to do your histadlut. Well, Moshe Rabbeinu says, you don't need to fight the war. Hashem will fight the war. So again, these things go against the grain of a lot of people's way of looking at the world. A lot of Jews, how we look at the world. how we look at situations, how we look at crises that unfold. Moshe Rabbeinu's words rub almost everybody the wrong way, one way or the other. Because just think about it. The Midrash says at the sea, the Jewish people divided into 4 groups. In other words, pretty well everybody fell into one of those groups. You think it's any different today? Pretty well everybody falls into one of these 4 groups today in almost any situation. Anyway, Moshe says, don't fight. Let Hashem fight. And the last group, there was the air people were just screaming. I got to protest. Yeah, send a petition to the United Nations. There's the Egyptian army coming after these poor, helpless women and children. That's against the Geneva Convention. So what does the Midrash say that Moshe said to them? It says at the end of that pasuk, "Vatem tacharishun," and you will be quiet. You must be silent. Stop the noise. Stop the screaming. Just stop it all. So we see very clearly in 2 verses, Moshe's words, when they're unpacked carefully by the Midrash, and that's the beauty of a Midrashim. They were written by Chazal, meaning they had such chokhmah, such wisdom, such insight. Not just historical insight, but I'll call it existential insight. Insight for the ages, insight for all times. Really helps us to understand ourselves and our world that we live in. So before we go any further, I want to take a little break here and make an announcement, because this coming Sunday night, which is March the 22nd in the year 2026, in case you're listening to this thing a year from now, this is 2026, and it's an upcoming Sunday of March 22nd, just a few weeks before Pesach. There's this online event called the Breslov Key to Pesach Joy. I'll put a link down in the description so that if you want to, you can sign up for it. It's an online couple hours of a chizuk. There's about, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different speakers. I've been asked to speak at the event. And there's also going to be the music of Menachem Herman there also as well, like giving live music, which is an amazing thing. Some of you are familiar with Menachem Herman. He's a great, great musician. Also Breslov. So we're going to have this 2-hour evening with different people giving different kind of encouraging words to help prepare us all for Pesach. But you have to sign up for it. So I recommend, please do, if you're watching this video in the next couple of days after I'm giving it this week, all the way up to March 22nd, sign up for it, go to the link, and put your email address in, and you'll have access to that live share. It's called the Breslov Key to Pesach Joy. All right, now let's get back to the main message tonight. We just saw that there are these 4 basic fundamental approaches to life. We call them the 4 fundamental elements of the universe. And we saw them unpacking themselves by the Yam, by the sea, with the Jewish people. And we also saw that Moshe Rabbeinu is addressing each one of these. Now let's see it in an individual life, not a national perspective, but in an individual life. Let's look at the life of Eliyahu, Elijah, the prophet. Now his story is told in Malachim Aleph, in 1 Kings chapters like 7, 18, 19. You can read through the whole story on your own. It's a very famous story. Most of you are very well aware of the story, but in quick summation, the northern tribes had fallen into deep avodah zarah, deep idolatry, under also the guidance and leadership of their king and queen, Achav and Jezebel, as she's called in English. And Eliyahu, he was sent by Hashem to go up north to Har Carmel and challenge all the false prophets of Baal and of the Asherah, which he did successfully. And he brought down the fire and he consumed the offering, and all the people said, Hashem Hu ha-Elokim, Hashem Hu ha-Elokim, Hashem Hu ha-Elokim. And we say that on Yom Kippur, right? At the very end, after Nila. So this was a very great success for Eliyahu, like a tremendous high. Like all of the false prophets were wiped out. Then everybody turned back to Hashem with a pure heart. And you think, wow, what heights. What happens after that? Jezebel gets angry and she puts out word to go arrest Eliyahu and have him executed. So Eliyahu hears about this, and what happens to him? He turns into water. He becomes one of the water people. Let's read the pasuk. Okay, so this is Malachim Aleph, 1 Kings, chapter 19 and verse 4. And this is what the pasuk says. It says, V'hu halach b'midbar derech yom. He went 1 day's journey into the desert. V'yavo yeshev tachet rotem echad. And he went, he sat under this rotem tree. Obviously, it was hot. He was running away. He was tired. He didn't have anything to eat. So he sat under a tree, got some shade. Vayishal et nafsho lamut. He just asked Hashem that he would just die. And these are his words. Vayomer, and he says, Rav ata Hashem, enough Hashem, this is enough. Kach nafshi, just take my life, take my soul. Ki lo tov anochi me avotai. I'm no better than my ancestors. Just wipe me out. It's like, what? Eliyahu, the great prophet that's at every bris today, the great prophet who literally just blew out of his own body and it turned into a fiery, a fiery goof, and he went straight up into Gan Eden without ever dying in a chariot of fire. That Eliyahu? Yeah, that Eliyahu. He just wanted to die. That's the water. That's the water. So don't feel like, if you happen to feel like this, you're like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. No, you're not. Eliyahu, look what he did. He came back. He went down there and he had that huge height. Just think about that. Oh, yeah. He had that huge height. He did tremendous victory. And right afterward, a tremendous Yerida. Wow. It was heavy. So the higher you go up, the higher you may go down. That's a little bit of a scary thought, but that's what's somewhat alluded to in the story. And still, he was able to find strength and come back up again. Let's see how he did it. So you read through the story, and Hashem says, listen, that's not the option here. He told him to eat some food, and in the strength of that food, he was going to journey for 40 days, and he was going to go down, where? To Har Sinai. He would go right to the very cave that Moshe Rabbeinu himself was zocha to be in. Now, to be in that cave, by the way, means that you have to strip yourself of all materialistic, essence. Literally, it's like an out-of-body experience where there's no gashmiut whatsoever, no physicality to yourself at all. It's not a cave like people think today that there's a cave and you just walk in and walk out, like anybody can walk in and out of the cave. No. This was a cave where literally there was no way in and no way out, naturally speaking. It was a sealed cave. But inside, it was a cave. So anyway, Shem says, go there. 40 days and 40 nights he fasted. Now Moshe Rabbeinu fasted 40 days and 40 nights 3 times in a row. So it's like, whoa, 120 days. So Eliyahu did it here for 40 days. I'm not going to recommend you fast for 40 days and 40 nights, and that means like there was no food and there was no water, nothing. So it tells you what kind of a level he was at spiritually to be able to do that. So how close to Hashem he was, and he had difficulties. All right, he arrives inside the cave, which in and of itself mind-blowing that he was that spiritual, that he would literally devolve himself of his physicality and end up in this cave. Nikrat Hatzor, that's the way it's worded, in the crevice of the rock. All right, now we're up in verse 11 and verse 12. Same chapter 19. So Hashem says, Vayomer, Tse ve'amadata v'har lifnei Hashem v'hinei Hashem over. So just go stand inside of the mountain before Hashem, and Hashem's going to pass by. So now this is where Hashem is finally going to reveal himself to Eliyahu in a dramatic way, and just similar to how Hashem revealed himself also to Moshe Rabbeinu, like many times before, but certainly after the chet of the ego, when Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to have this tremendous rachmanus from Hashem down upon the Jewish people, and Hashem revealed to him the 13 attributes of mercy. So here comes Hashem's words, in a sense, but not the words yet. First of all, things began to happen. What happened? V'ruach gedolah v'chazak mitfarek harim u'shaber salaim lifnei Hashem. There was this tremendous, strong, and mighty wind, like a hurricane or something like that, or a tornado, some awesome, powerful wind. And it like broke the rocks, smashed all of the rocks before Hashem. What does the pasuk say? Lo Baruch Hashem. Hashem wasn't in the wind. He wasn't in that big storm. He wasn't in all that noise of rocks breaking and wind blowing. And so we saw Eliyahu falling into despair and wanting to literally just die. That was the water aspect. And now, which of these is this? We've got three left again. Air, fire, and earth. So which is this? Well, obviously it's air, isn't it? Because it's a big storm. It's a big air storm, a big ruach. Wind, that's air. And it's very powerful and does lots of things. It's so powerful it smashes rocks. That corresponds to the people who always want to make a lot of noise. They want to smash the rocks with their words. But you see, Hashem is not there. He's not in all that noise. Okay, what happens next? Ve'achar haruach rash. After the windstorm, there was an earthquake. An earthquake. Wow. Like, you put yourself in Eliyahu's position for a second. He's in the side of a rock cave here, on the side of a mountain. And he's like, an earthquake. I mean, rock shaking and the wind shaking and rock smashing and now an earthquake. Like, he's probably thinking to himself, oh, I'm going to die inside this cave and be crushed by the rocks. I don't know. Anyway, big, massive earthquake. What happens? Lo barash Hashem. Hashem was not in the earthquake. So obviously the earthquake is the earth, right? The earthquake is, that's what it is. That's the earth concept. That's the earth concept. He also had to battle with this earth concept. What is that? Just resign himself. Just go back. These are three very powerful klipot that can take over a person. Hashem says no. Moshe says no. Hold your ground and see the salvation of Hashem. But be quiet. So we've had the water. That was his complete and utter despair. Then we had the big storm, which was the air. Then we had the earthquake. Still, there's no Hashem. There's still no Hashem. Ve'achar harash ish. Now comes the fire. After the earthquake was a fire. A fire, like, whoa. That's the fire response. I mean, it's just, you just walk it right through. It's like air, earth, fire. It's like, it's so obvious that's what's going on here. It's not even like you're trying to stretch the analogy. Straight from the psukim themselves. So fire, yeah, let's fight. Let's go back and fight against Izevil. Let's get an army together and go after the king. And Lo v'esh Hashem. Hashem wasn't in the fire either. So all these four elements, the exact same four. Water, air, fire, earth. There's a different order of them in the story when we were at the Yam. It's water, earth, fire, and air. That's a separate drasha. You can think about why the last three were flipped in the order between the nation and between Eliyahu, but that's beyond our scope, as we say today. So what? So he tried all these four things and nothing was working. No Hashem. What am I supposed to do, Hashem? Lots of noise, lots of storm, lots of fire, but no Hashem. Then what happens? The pasuk ends and says the following: Achar ha'esh, after the fire, three little words: Kol demama baka. A thin, still voice, meaning really quiet, ethereal whisper. And that's when Hashem spoke. And that's when he heard Hashem's words. Read the story on your own. That's when he heard it. Hashem spoke to him not in all that nonsense, all that commotion, all that stuff. No. Only when he calmed down, only when he stopped all of the internal machinations that are natural to a human being, just put all that aside, and he broke through all of those klipot. And then it was just quietness. This is why I say all the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, So you got to do hitbodedut. I say that about as much as other people say you got to do hishtadlut. Because why? Because Rabbi Nachman says you don't need to do hishtadlut much at all. Just like a teeny little weeny bit, little bit. The main hishtadlut a person needs to do is making himself into a kli of kedusha. That's his hishtadlut. I think there's some little trifle something. But what we really need to put our effort into is hitbodedut. What is that? It means you go off on your own, someplace quiet, and you talk to Hashem for an hour. In your own words. No script, no book. Just in your own natural language. You just talk to Hashem like you're talking to a friend, and you just go through things. And if you can discipline yourself to do that every single day without exception, you'll go through the water, and you'll go through the earth, and you'll go through the fire, and you'll go through the air. In every session of your hitbodedut, if it's a good one, you'll pass through all of those 4. And at the end of it, but you have to take the hour. Rabbi Nachman says you must spend an hour. If you do it and you discipline yourself and you work on that as your main avoda, then at the end, you'll hear Hashem's voice. You'll hear Hashem's voice whispering to you. Now, you're not going to literally hear it. Don't misunderstand my words, but you'll hear inside your soul this kol demama daka, this thin little voice. And that's Hashem speaking to you. That's how you live your life. Otherwise, it's just storms and fires and earthquakes and desires to drown yourself. That's not the way we want to live. We don't want to live that way. Nobody does. Now that we learned all this, let's plug it back in to the war with Iran, where we started, because that's what we're trying to help us with. You know, we're living in a world where every day there's sirens are going off, alarms are going off, missiles are flying and they're landing in various places in the country, some reasonably close to where I live. Big boom sometimes. People, again, this is a crisis. And the same thing is whether if you're living in Iran, it's the same thing. Or you're living in Bahrain. There's a lot of other places now that are getting hit by missiles. So people, all of us, can fall into these 4 categories. Let's go through them. The water category. The water people will just collapse, despair. This is hopeless. That's what they feel, hopelessness. Iran is too powerful. The region is too unstable. The world is turning against Israel. This could spiral completely into a catastrophe. If you don't believe me, just go on YouTube. Well, you're already on YouTube. But go look around. You'll see there's all the prognosticators, right? That's what they're saying. That's partially also the air people. But that kind of despair, this is hopeless. And they had these pictures of mushroom clouds everywhere. That's the water people. And then there's the earth people. Earth people is just, accommodate, submit. We need to de-escalate the situation immediately. We need to stop attacking, make concessions if necessary, work toward a ceasefire. The priority is stability and survival. That's the earth response. To many of you, that's going to resonate. I understand. Well, yeah. I'm an earth person. I'm all earth first. And then there's the fire people. Oh, the fire people is obvious. They say we need to finish the job, man. We need to finish the job. Destroy Iran's military capabilities, totally regime change, the whole 9 yards. Escalate. No, that's not the answer either. And neither is the 4th category that we can find ourselves in America, which is the air people. They got to make a lot of noise with their mouths, a lot of agitation, shouting and protesting, appealing and lobbying and pressuring governments and public opinion and all that kind of stuff. That's where, like the Midrash says, when we were at the sea, Arba Kitot Nesu Yisrael al Hayam. 4 groups of people that the Jewish people fell into at the sea. And the same thing with this war with Iran, you could say the same thing. That the people of the world, you could say the Jewish people, or you could say the American people, you could say people of Europe, you could say the Iranians, I don't care who you say, it's the same thing. Basically, everybody pretty well falls into one of these 4 categories. But the Torah comes along and says, no, there's a 5th response. And that's what Eliyahu learned. And that's what Moshe said. What did Moshe say? After he said everything to everybody, he said, what did he say? He said, Tacharishun, be quiet. And he also told them, Hit Yatzavu, be still. Be still, stand strong. And just don't do anything. Don't even talk. What do you mean don't talk? If I don't talk, I'm not going to get people to go click on my YouTube videos, and I'm not going to get subscribers. I got to talk. That's the prognosticators. They always got to be talking all the time and getting more subscribers. I'm not against it. I'm making a point. I think you can understand. I think it's wonderful. Let people listen. Let people learn. Let people hear Torah. But be careful who you're listening to and what it's feeding. Is it feeding the water in you? Is it feeding the earth in you? Is it feeding the fire in you? Is it feeding the air in you? Then you shouldn't be listening. If, on the other hand, it's feeding the fifth response, which is what? Stand still. Quiet down. And hear Hashem guiding your mind. That's the fifth response. That's the response which is above nature. That's what the Torah teaches us. The Torah teaches us, calm down. Don't react. Don't become reactionary. That's what it says. It's not being passive, by the way. It's not being passive because what happened in that quietness? In that quietness, what happened at the sea? The sea split. That's the point. The sea split in that quietness. When everybody put their eyes toward Moshe Rabbeinu and they listened and they said, okay, we're going to stand still. We're going to put our swords back in the sheath. We're going to stop screaming. When people looked at the tzaddik, when they looked at Moshe Rabbeinu and they said, okay, we're quiet. Then Moshe Rabbeinu was a kli, a tremendous vessel of salvation from Hashem to the people. Hashem says to Moshe, okay, great. Everybody's calm now? Now comes salvation. No salvation when there's chaos. Only salvation when there's calmness, inner calmness, and submission to Moshe Rabbeinu. Then Hashem says to Moshe, raise your staff and split the sea. Split the sea? What? Split the sea? What are you talking about, Hashem? Split the sea? Do you see the point? Did Moshe Rabbeinu know that Hashem was going to tell him to split the sea? No, he didn't know that. That's the point of the fifth response, folks. You don't know the response. All you know is, all I have to do is be quiet and be still and calm down. And only in that state is the fifth response, what? Revealed. That's it. Because it's above nature. It's above all the four elements. The four elements are all the ways of the world. And Hashem says, that doesn't stop me. I'm above all that. And you'll never think it through. You'll never realize what that fifth is. It'll never be seen by you. Unless you do what Moshe says. Stand still, calm down, and be quiet. And then through the tzaddik, salvation will come. So it's not passivity. Because what happened? They went forward. They went forward. They went through the sea. It's all about an inner change inside of our soul. We just say, I'm going to calm down. And my suggestion is, how do you do it? Is through an avoda of hitbodedut every single day. You have to train yourself in that to calm down. So when you're walking along the street and you hear the sirens go off, you don't panic. You don't start running somewhere. Oh, you just sing a song of Hashem and thank Him. Because Hashem is orchestrating this to bring the Jewish people to tshuva and the revelation of Mashiach, hopefully, and the complete peace of the world. He's doing it for everybody's benefit. You can say, what are you talking about? Well, we've talked about that before. Things that don't seem like they're good really are. It's the same thing about the Gaza war. We talked about it before. We have articles on our website about it. How Hashem is really behind it all. How it was really for good. Even to those martyrs, those Jewish martyrs that died, were killed at the Nova party. I don't want to go into that whole thing today, but you have to realize there's another way to look at the world than the way you normally look at it. You have to stop looking at the world through fire. You have to stop looking at it through air. You have to stop looking at it through earth. And you have to stop looking at it through water. You have to see quietness. And only then do you hear Hashem saying what's going on. That's it. That's the clarity And it's the inner stillness before Hashem. So that's it. The same point in both stories. We instinctively react. We instinctively react to the four elements, to these four ways, these four reactionary approaches. But that's just instinct. That's not what we ultimately need to be. The redemption and the revelation appears only when those four natural mechanisms, those natural reactions, quiet down. And then we hear the call Damama Daka. Have a great week, folks. B'ezrat Hashem. We'll have another class next week.